Welcome back to our dependency injection training. So you should have your project and solution already created if you're following along. Now we're going to add our services project. We're going to right click on our solution, select add, new project, and in the Windows desktop folder we're going to select class library, and I'm going to copy dependency injection, paste that in here, and we're going to call dependency injection.services. Okay, and here we're going to rename our class 1 that it creates for us. I'm using ReSharper, and what I did is I hit F2, that's for rename. We're going to call this math service. And let's implement one method, the add method. And then we're just going to add them together. Pretty basic. And we're going to remove these unused directives. And there we go. So that's our math service, one method, really simple. Now in our model, we're going to need a math model for use with our controller. So I right-clicked, and since I'm using ReSharper, I have all these options available. If I hit the letter C, since it's underlined, I'll create a class. Call it math model. And there we go. So here we're going to need a couple of different values. We're going to need a first. We're going to need a second. And I'm using ReSharper again. PROP is a preset template, so we can type that and hit tab. And that'll give us a template so that we can create a property. So we're going to call this a result. Okay, so there's our model. We've got our service. Now let's go to our home controller. And we're going to add another index method. And it takes a math model parameter. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our math model, we're going to call the service, and we're going to have the result in the math model and send it back to our view. So in order to do that, we're going to need the service. So let's create a property again. And we're going to call it math service, of type math service. Okay, and it doesn't know that. So if I Alt Enter, it'll say reference this project. That's what I want to do. And then let's create just a default constructor that'll create our math service for us. Okay, so right off the bat, I know what you're thinking. This isn't testable. And you're right, it's not. We'll get there. Okay, so model.result equals model.mathService add, and we're going to send it the first parameter and the second property value as parameters. And then we're going to return the view with our model. Now if we go over to our view, we can define our model that's being expected. So let's do that. Forgot the @ sign. And we're going to call it math model. And we're going to get rid of the rest of this stuff here. Okay. Now let's create a quick and dirty UI so that we can exercise our service. So we're going to start off with a form. A form group and row are both bootstrap classes. So we want this div to be 3 columns wide in the bootstrap layout. We're going to create a label for our first parameter property. So we want 9 columns wide for this one. All right, so that's that, or the first one. Now let's copy this for the second property. All right, now we need a button. So we're going to offset that 3 columns. We want that a row column as well. I mean a row. And let's have our input, type of submit. And add some classes. I've got some Angular stuff in there. We're going to use the button and button primary. Now right below the button, let's put the output. And we're going to use display for. Okay, so let's take a look at this, what we've written so far. So this begins our form tag, and then anything inside squiggly brackets will be inside the form tag, and it defaults to post on the same action method. And label for, we want to define what we want to have a label for, and we're going to have the first property of our math model. So if we go over here, we can take a look. Same with the second. And then text box, what that does is it creates a text box with the value of the first property in our model. Same with the second one here. Now this display for, that will create a text display, text output for that property in the model. Now we got to go back and fix one thing on our controller. And what we have to fix is, if we notice on our controller, we have 2 index methods. One without a parameter and one with a parameter. If we were to run this, we would get runtime error because it wouldn't be able to figure out which method, because it could send null to this method, and that would be the same as calling this method. So let's make this one a get, and we'll make this one post. Now let's build it and run it, and we'll see what we got. So I'm pressing Control F5 because I don't want to debug it. Here's our form. Very lovely. Now if we put 3 in here and 4 in here, click submit, we get 7. That looks right. Okay, so let's look back at our controller and see where the problem are. I mentioned earlier that it's not testable. We have our math service property, and it's being instantiated in the controller. So if we were to test the home controller, we wouldn't be able to test just the controller. We would also be testing the math service. And we don't want that. We want to isolate what we're testing. So one way to do this, it's like a poor man's dependency injection, is we could have this constructor call another constructor that takes math service as a parameter. So let me do that just so I can show you what that looks like. We're going to check this box for math service, click finish, and then in here we're going to take out the body of this constructor. And at the end here, we're going to say this new math service. Okay, so that doesn't really gain us a whole lot. we can send in another math service, but we still got a concrete class that we're dealing with. So the next video, we're going to create an interface for this math service. We're going to implement that, and then we're going to see how that helps us with our unit testing.